Good Yontif. Saul and Ethel had been married a very long time. But early on in their marriage, Saul did something stupid. Not a huge sin, but something small like we husbands are prone to do. And sure enough, in the midst of it, Saul apologized, and Ethel said, "Honey, don't worry, I forgive you. And not only do I forgive you, but I believe in forgiving and forgetting." Well, sure enough, as their marriage went on, every now and again, Ethel would remind Saul of exactly what he had done stupid so early in their marriage. And sure enough, as the years went by, here and there it would come up. Ethel would remind Saul of exactly what he did early in their marriage. Finally, after many years, Saul turned to Ethel. He said, "Ethel, we've been married a long time. I apologize for that mistake years and years and years ago, yet you keep bringing it up again over and over. Didn't you tell me you believe in a policy of forgiving and forgetting?" Ethel said to her husband Saul, "Yes, honey, absolutely, I believe in a policy of forgiving and forgetting. I just don't want you to forget that I forgave and forgot." We are today amidst the day of forgiveness. This is Yom Kippur, the day of saying I'm sorry, the day of asking God for forgiveness. This is the day that we pray over and over again. V'yal kulam Elohas lichot, selach lanu, michal lanu, kaper lanu. For all these things, O God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement. And so it is over the course of these 24 hours that we beat our chests, that we will literally just a few minutes from now bow to the floor, beseeching God for forgiveness. Today is the day that standing before God, we recognize and we admit that we haven't been perfect. Perhaps we haven't come to shul nearly as much as we should have. I know which one of you. Perhaps we haven't kept kosher the way we should. And I'll just say I happened to note on the back of a particular Jewish newspaper a large ad this past week in the Yom Kippur edition, a large ad on the back that said, "Look out for Lobster Tuesdays." My thought is they were trying to drum up business just before Kol Nidre, because then you could come and apologize. But today is the day that we stand before God and we admit our imperfections, where we've done wrong. And the Mishnah says indeed that the Day of Atonement atones for sins between us and God, as long as we ask for forgiveness with sincerity, and as long as we make a promise and a commitment to never repeat those same mistakes. But the Mishnah goes on to say that while the Day of Atonement atones for sins between man and God, the Day of Atonement does not atone for sins committed, for transgressions made, for errors of speech and of action between one person and another person. That we have to do ourselves. And our tradition is very clear about how we ask for forgiveness. We do it with full heart, with sincerity. We ask God to forgive, and we ask our fellow man whom we've wronged to forgive us. So I'd like, if you will, if you could just take a moment in your head. And if you'll think of someone who in the last year, maybe even the last many years, who in the last year have you really ticked off? It's probably even easier to think too. Who in the last year has really ticked you off? Can you ask for forgiveness? Can you offer forgiveness? And when you ask for forgiveness, I'm not talking about saying, "I'm sorry, but you know." Or it happened because of this, that, and the other thing, and it's not really my fault, but I'll say I'm sorry anyway. But can you, with full sincerity, putting aside all of the other reasons that may exist and may be true, and say, "I'm sorry. I hurt you. That wasn't my intention. I hope you'll forgive me. Indeed, when we pray to God on this Yom Kippur and we say, V'al kulam Elohas slichot, salach lanu, mechal lanu, kaper lanu, for all these things, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement. It's not just a rabbinic opportunity to use 3 words when you can only use 1, when you only need 1. Those 3 different things, salach, mechal, and kaper, are 3 different ways of forgiving. When we say salach lanu, we talk about the forgiveness called slicha. Many of us know the Hebrew word from traveling to Israel. When someone shoves us aside in the shuk, they say slicha, slicha. But slicha is a notion of forgiveness where someone has truly paid back whatever mistake they've made. They've admitted it, and now they're asking for forgiveness. When a kid steals a pencil from another kid and then is made to return the pencil and says to the other child, please forgive me, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. That's slicha. When someone talks badly about us behind our back, when they come to us and say, you know what, I did wrong here. I apologize. Please forgive me. We are to engage in slicha. We're to forgive them because they've repaid us the debt that they owed us. And our rabbis come to teach that when someone comes to ask us for forgiveness, if we don't grant them that forgiveness, if they're truly and sincere offering that request for forgiveness and we don't give it, then we are sinning just as they are. We're practically obligated to grant forgiveness to anyone who offers it sincerely. That's slicha, salach lanu. The second step, mechal lanu, comes from the Hebrew word mechilah. This is a whole nother level of forgiveness. When we grant someone mechilah, we don't just see that they've paid back their debt. Yes, they've achieved slicha. But we say, you know what, I'm willing to go back to where we were before you committed that mistake. I'm willing to try to forgive and forget. That's mechilah. And our rabbis teach it is most certainly within human power to grant someone mechilah. To say, you know what, I'm willing to forgive and forget. Let's move forward. So as you think about that person you really ticked off this year, or as you think about that person who really ticked you off this year, what would it take for them to come to you to ask for slicha? What would it take for you to go to them to ask for slicha? What would it take to go the next step and ask for mechilah, a real, true, deep forgiveness? There's a third kind of forgiveness. V'al kulam Elohas slichot, salach lanu, mechal lanu, kaper lanu. The same word as Yom Kippur. This Hebrew word kapara is literally wiping the slate clean, starting all over again. While humans can grant slicha and mechilah, only God can grant kapara. So as you think and you hold in your head that one person whom you've really ticked off this year, or that one person who really ticked you off this year, what would it take for you to grant them forgiveness? What would it take for them to grant you forgiveness? I'm reminded, too, of the story of a rabbi who was teaching a particular religious school class. And in that class were 2 boys who just constantly bickered and fought and argued and bickered and fought and argued. And finally, the rabbi had had enough of it. And he said, I want some shalom. I'm done. So the rabbi sat the 2 kids down, and he said, first I want you to shake hands and apologize to each other. And sure enough, they shook hands and apologized to each other the way kids do. He said, but it's not enough to just apologize. Right here, right now, I want you to grant each other slicha and mechilah. I want you to start all over again. I want you to say something really nice to the other person. And sure enough, they're still shaking hands, holding hands, when one child says to the other, I wish for you in this new year everything that you are thinking in your head right now, wishing for me. And sure enough, the other child turned to the rabbi and said, "Rabbi, look, he's starting up again." But as we think about forgiveness on this day of forgiveness, we should be mindful that sometimes there are those in our life closest to us who have hurt us the most. I'm thinking of brothers or sisters, nieces or nephews, parents, children. It is said that family is a lot like porcupines. You need to get closer and closer to each other for the sake of warmth and comfort. But if you get too close, you'll feel a prick. Or as I like better, family is a lot like fudge. Mostly sweet, but with a few nuts. But too often in the midst of our family dramas, a break occurs. Someone says something to someone else. Someone does something to someone else that drives us apart. And I'll tell you, I've been seeing this trend more and more often. As I get a call to do a funeral, and as I'm preparing to meet with the family, someone invariably will call me and say, "Rabbi, before you come over, let me just say, it's complicated." Or as I'm about to walk into a house to meet with a family, having just lost a loved one in preparation for the funeral, where someone will pull me aside and tell me who's not speaking with whom, or who can't be in the room, who's not even listed in the obituary. So many of us have these situations among our families. It's raw. It hurts. Perhaps because they're like porcupines, or perhaps because we're like fudge. But when we break with our family, it hurts the most. I wonder, on this day of forgiveness, as you think about someone who really hurt you in the last year or whom you've really hurt, especially family, siblings, nieces and nephews, cousins, parents, children, could you grant them forgiveness for what they've done? Or perhaps more to the point, could you recognize, with the humility that must come from Yom Kippur, that whatever it is they're angry at you for, you probably did something wrong. And perhaps they will admit that they've done something wrong. Could you forgive your family? Now, while our tradition is clear that we're obligated to forgive if someone comes to seek forgiveness from us, I believe that our tradition is clear that even if someone doesn't seek forgiveness from us, it's in our best interest to forgive them. The Torah says clearly, "You shall not hate your brother in your heart." And then it follows the next part of the pasuk, the next part of the verse, "You shall not hate your brother in your heart. You shall rebuke them if they've done something wrong." Which to me says the moment you are holding a grudge against someone, whether that be a friend or a family member, you're actually committing a sin. The moment you're holding a grudge, you're actually committing a sin. Because we are commanded not to hate. And if someone has done something wrong to us, we're commanded to let them know that they've hurt us, that they've made us upset. Could you this Yom Kippur go to that loved one you're thinking of, to that friend you're thinking of, to that former friend you're thinking of? Could you tell them that they've hurt you and that you would like to forgive them? Rabbi Harold Kushner tells a story that here on his Yom Kippur day, he was giving a sermon about forgiveness. When a woman comes storming up to him after the service and she says, "Rabbi, how dare you? How dare you ask us to forgive, especially our loved ones?" The woman went on to tell Rabbi Kushner that she had been divorced from her husband, that her husband had left her and the children with nothing and gone. And here for these years she'd been so angry, so upset by him. How could Rabbi Kushner tell her to forgive him? Rabbi Kushner explained to the woman that anger is like a burning hot coal. And how sad it is, how tragic, what a terrible sin that this husband of hers put that burning hot coal into her hand. But that for all these years since the divorce, it's been her who's been holding on to that burning hot coal. It's been her refusing to let go. Can you, on Yom Kippur, let go? Indeed, that's what I think we are obligated to do today. To let go of the burning hot coal. To forgive as a matter of kindness, as a matter of mitzvah, as a matter of personal health and well-being. So on this Yom Kippur, as you think about this person you really ticked off in the last year, can you go to them and ask for forgiveness? Similarly, that person who ticked you off in the last year, or in the last many years, can you go to them and say, I want to make amends. You really hurt me. I'd like to forgive you. The story is told of Chaplain Ernest Luge, one of the first rabbis who was a chaplain in the U.S. Army. He was a chaplain in World War II. He was actually one of the liberators of Buchenwald. And there he was in Germany, when in the midst of his travels he came across an American soldier who lay dying on the ground. The chaplain knelt down and he took the man's hand in his own. The man was sputtering. He was struggling to breathe. The chaplain said, "Son, is there anything I can do for you?" The child, this young man, the soldier, looked into the chaplain's eyes. And he said, "Sir, there's nothing now you can do for me. But there is something I'd like you to undo for me. There is something I'd like you to undo for me." On this day of Yom Kippur, as we stand at the Yizkor hour, we recognize that there is an end to our days. There will be a time where we can no longer undo what we've done. But the window is not yet closed on our lives. The chance is not yet done for us to seek forgiveness and to offer forgiveness. Can you, on this day of Yom Kippur, ask for forgiveness and accept forgiveness? And can we, going forward, live in such a way that when our time comes, we don't have to ask that anything be undone? May this be our blessing, one of forgiveness, one of atonement. May this be our challenge. May God bless us with strength to grant forgiveness and to seek forgiveness today and every day. And let us say together, Amen.